Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. I'm joined tonight by Ricky Addington.
Oh my gosh, I'm back. The show's still going. Let's do this.
We are the Battle of Lost Souls podcast. This is a segment, Ricky and I are going to talk for a bit, and then I've got a spot with Reese where we talk about the proposed Thor rules for the ITC, and then we go into the Bay Area Open coverage after a short break. And so this will be kind of like a quick segment with me and Ricky, but, you know, Ricky, you've been out doing your Army assignments, and happy you're back.
I drink so much Monster. I should have a sponsorship now because I keep them in business. But other than that, it was great. It was great. So
it will be cool if we can get sponsored by Monster on the show here.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
I don't even have to make stuff up. I'm just going to give them some life stories, and they're going to be like, "Yep, this is our new front. This is our poster boy."
Well, Skype just had an update, so I apologize for any audio issues. There's always some weirdness after Skype updates, so please bear with us. We have to configure, we have to rotate the ion shields.
I hope you sound like T-Pain, like when the recording comes out. Like, I just hope you are auto-tuned.
The ion shields.
I would listen to that over and over and over. I would listen to that episode nonstop. But this is going to be great because this episode is going to have like me for 30 minutes, and then it's going to have like actual stuff I can listen to for the rest of it, which is great. And then I've got a backlog of episodes to listen to because it's a fun podcast to listen to because I don't know what's going to happen.
It's right. Exciting things around every turn. Well, dude, you got to be excited about Knights taking center stage.
What is going
at a major
on?
Event.
Yeah, it is a topsy-turvy world. Remember when I would have to defend my choice to play Knights every time you'd be like, Ricky, you know, you're not going to win a tournament with Knights. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I just love them. You know, I know I'm not going to win and now all of a sudden Knights are just tearing it up everywhere. And all of a sudden everybody's on the Knight bandwagon. And here I am with my little, like, you know, like when Star Wars started getting popular again and all of us longtime nerds were like, but that's my thing. That's kind of how I feel about Knights. Right?
Well, I mean, these are Knight-ish armies.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about this a little bit later in the show, but there are things that have engines, things that all come together and combo into really cool things. And that was like when we did our Knight review. I mean, you know, you were here, you guys were listening. That we thought this would be cool if you could just do all these tricks.
Yeah, because remember when the Codex came out, we were down. What was our run? Like,
you got 3
6?
Command points. Period. It might have been 6 total.
I think it was 6 total command points because it was Battleforge and you had the detachment, and so you could really get about 6 command points out of a list. And, you know, over the course of one FAQ, that doubled. So to have that many command points and then, you know, allying a few little things here and there to give you more command points back, it just makes them bonkers good. I was playing a game last night. A buddy came over. I hadn't got to play 40k in like almost 3 weeks. Well, no, I guess 2 weeks because ATC. And I kid you not, I used the stratagem to let me just charge dudes that are up on like the 2nd level of ruins.
Because you just had to burn. You could just
because I had them. I just had the command points. It was a 5-man squad of sniper scouts. They were no threat. Still did it. Had the points. Why not? So
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's great. I wish it would clarify a little more. We are assuming that it's from the base because the wording of the rule basically says you have to be within 2 inches of them horizontally and 6 inches of them vertically when you finish your charge. I'm assuming that's 6 inches from the base of the model, and that's how we played it. Because 6 inches from the top of a knight would be, that's cheating, right? That feels.
I don't know that it is. I mean, he has long arms. Come on.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm going to play it as base. GW, give us an FAQ on that.
I believe, though, when you are measuring to things with bases, you measure to and from the base.
Base, right? Yeah, I think so. Either way, it's still great, and nobody thinks about it because they're like, oh, I could just hide from the...
We're talking about weird things. I mean, you just did a stratagem that is uncommon and not often used. We had a question into the Facebook recently was, does the teleport Homer count as a friendly model for scoring objectives and or fully destroying the unit in kill point games of Terminators?
I think we can all agree that no.
Well, okay, that's what I said. that if I were to be asked that to rule on that, I would say no.
Yeah.
But,
that's the common sense thing.
Yeah.
And then here comes the but. Hit me with the but.
Well, it doesn't say that. It even goes so far as to say something about units of Terminators can use friendly teleport homers, meaning that it's a model and you've just kind of called it friendly. And then you go on to the Wraith Gate that says the Wraithbone Gate, for the Eldari that came out with the Harlequins, that it specifically says it cannot be placed within 3 inches of an objective or whatever, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think so. I think, oh my gosh, like, this is one of those like lawyer questions, right? But like a friendly teleport homer, I still don't think it would be, I still wouldn't consider it a model.
Saying. It's a model. You just called it friendly.
Yeah, but it's...
Listen to yourself.
I know.
You're struggling with the same thing that I did.
I know, but it's more like a token than anything, Like, it's friendly because both players could have one. So, obviously, you're not going to teleport home onto your opponent's homer, right? So...
I don't know. That's some serious Scotty from Star Trek stuff.
The worst part is, it is a model. It is that tiny little model that you put on a base, that little homing beacon looking thing.
It's bigger than a brimstone. It's not even that tiny.
Just no. Let's just no.
I appreciate your dedication to the no. I mean, I really do. But, I mean, it does make you think, right?
Yeah, but does it have a data sheet? Does it have keywords? Does it have anything? Like, the Webway portal, it has a data sheet. It's got keywords saying it's this, this, and this. A teleport homer has none of those things.
I mean, I believe it's 0 points, but you still have to buy it.
Do you? Do you buy it? Or is it just does it come with? I think it just says you may. I can't remember. I haven't used Terminators in so long.
Yeah. Okay. Now obviously this is the going to be what the slush is. So Terminators just did really well at the Bay Area Open in the form of the Death Guard Terminators. Where and we talk about this, where if we'd even had this, we talk about this later in the show, but if we'd even had this discussion 2 weeks ago, we would have called someone a noob for even considering to take them. But now I think it's going to kind of start a wave of people wanting to get their Terminators back on the table. Like, well, it worked for this guy, so it's going to work for me.
Right.
And you're going to see things like stuff you've never seen before, like people trying to score objectives with Terminator, with Teleport Homer, and potentially preventing a kill point loss.
Yeah. I've got a whole army case over here full of Deathwing Terminators. Like, I will lay it down right now. Let's go. I just don't think that, I personally think that's maybe an isolated thing, but I hope I'm wrong, because I would love nothing more than to see more Terminators on the table. So,
a Teleport Homer says, if this unit has a Teleport Homer, place it anywhere in your deployment zone when your army deploys. If an enemy model is ever within 9 inches of the Teleport Homer, it is deactivated and removed from the battlefield. Whilst there are any friendly chapter Teleport Homers on the battlefield, this unit can perform an emergency teleport instead of moving in its movement phase. At the end of the movement phase, remove this unit and then set it up with all models within 6 inches of a friendly chapter Teleport Homer. That Teleport Homer is then removed from the battlefield.
No! Just no! But man,
I mean,
look, it's a model, okay.
I hear you struggling with it. I hear you having physical discomfort.
Yeah, I feel like I'm watching something unnatural unfold here. Like this, we shouldn't even be talking about it. It's like when, people at Hogwarts mention Voldemort. I feel like there's that level of uneasiness about this.
The Teleport Homer is in the other war gear section, and it's 0 points. I mean, this kind of goes back to when Forensian Wolves, we could buy them as war gear.
Yeah.
They still scored objectives. I mean, they had stats, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Toughness and wounds and...
Oh, man. I feel like us talking about this is giving it credence, but we'll set a precedent, and people all across the nation will start doing this, and they'll be like, "Well, Paul and Ricky said it."
No, I'm not in. Look, I told you my answer is no. My answer is also no. This is where common sense should prevail. And heck, this I have not even exhaustively combed over the FAQs for something like this to see if this has already been addressed.
Yeah, I don't remember it being addressed, but
Because nobody was taking Terminators.
I hope it was.
No one cared.
Yeah.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah. It did not matter one bit because whoever was going to take Terminators. And now all of a sudden, now we got to worry about that.
Well, this is one of those things is that, like the Terminators became a threat because people weren't expecting to deal with them.
Yeah, right.
And
why would you? In fairness, why would you expect to deal with him?
Right. I mean, like a 3+ invulnerable save we know is good. Like you were taking some Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, Terminators, and they're a lot of points. But what you do with them, the mission that they complete on the battlefield, how they help you win games, is something that I think is fun to evaluate. Now, this could be one of those, again, splash in the pan things to where it doesn't really create a ripple effect, but what this did was it exposed a weakness in a lot of competitive builds is that they are weak to a strong, durable unit that can push the backfield. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing is, like, I don't think anyone ever argued that Terminators didn't have a role, that it was just the efficiency in which they accomplished that role, right? Like, it seemed like...
Well, the efficiency of putting a single model on the table. You put 5 Terminators on the table, and you're looking at some what we considered an obscene amount of points, even with, like, the extra wound and whatnot they've gotten within recent editions.
Yeah, it was... to me, it was like, oh, I could take those, or I could just take some Hellblasters, which will kill those way faster than they're ever going to do anything to me. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited. If these things are going to be that good, then I may have to start looking back at my Deathwing. But we'll
don't
see.
get too excited.
No, I'm definitely not, because like I'm so pumped about Knights right now that it's going to take a lot to get me to.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, let's say you were to apply. Now, I don't want to hang too much on the list itself and not taking into account the skill of the player, because that always is a factor. Like, nothing's going to replace playtesting, being familiar, being good, being up on the rules and stuff like that. But the same concept of this Death Guard list that used Blightlord Terminators and some Knights, the same concept applies with Dark Angels and Deathwing Terminators and Loyalist Knights.
Yeah. And I mean, there's things that you can pull off with Deathwing as well that are really good. Like Deathwing Terminators with Azrael there, you don't even need the Storm Shield because they're going to have the 4-up, and they've got that ability. There's a stratagem Deathwing Terminators have that they can shoot their Storm Bolters the turn they come in, and like when they come in the movement phase, and then they get to shoot again in the shooting phase. So if you've got 5 Terminators, that's what, see here, that's 20 shots and then 20 more in the shooting phase. So that becomes very scary. And then if you could, get Azrael there with them, you could do some crazy stuff with Terminators. It's just, are the points worth it?
Right. Well, yeah, I think you have to look at it. If you are considering making what we might consider a bold army list choice.
Yeah. Bold is the word for that, because I was playing in a local tournament, and I had a guy, I was playing Custodes, and this dude dropped 10 Deathwing Terminators right in front of me and pulled that crap, and that was 80 shots going into some Custodes. Guess what? Eventually you're going to fail 2-up saves. And he creamed me, just cleaned Custodian Guard off the table just by virtue of that many shots coming into me. And then, and there he is with a 2-up armor save. So they are a tough nut to crack. Granted,
I think you just really got to evaluate again what and also exploit weaknesses in a lot of commonly held lists. I mean, Dark Reapers menace. They do a lot of work, but if you can get on them, if you can come down and survive Deep Strike, then it doesn't take a lot to take them off the table. I mean, they are toughness 3. Now they're going to have cover saves and whatever. They're going to be difficult to dig out. But like you said, you do fail saves, and it doesn't take a lot to wound toughness
3. I mean,
you also do it with assault cannons, and cyclone missile launchers and that kind of stuff.
Yep. What is your army vulnerable to? If your army can't deal with with those Dark Reapers very well any other way, because what are Dark Reapers usually doing? You know, they're usually moving up and shooting and then running back behind cover and all that and doing all kinds of craziness.
It's fun to chat about it, I think. And I think that past just the novelty of it, we've actually seen it be incredibly successful. And what we know is a very competitive environment. So
Yeah, but that has been the theme, though, is the novelty of Terminators. I remember congratulating someone on putting Terminators in his armor. I was like, good for you. You know, and it's like they've kind of been relegated to the sidelines for so long that you get an attaboy just for bringing them. So that's kind of fun to see those show up and somebody, you know, do well with them is, you know, well done. Good for him.
Yeah, part of me really hopes that this whole teleport Homer question has been addressed somewhere else, and we are certainly not, endorsing that type of degenerate interpretation.
Yeah, but if I was at a table, like at a GT, and the judge comes over to answer the question, like when my opponent tries to pull this, I am definitely going to ask for a second opinion. I was going to be like, can we get another judge? Maybe like a more senior judge? Like your boss? Can I?
How awesome would that be to have like two Telebart homers holding down your back of the push, 2,000 points of your army in someone's face?
That would be like... It would be the greatest thing. I mean, it would make, and that's the thing, because what Terminators, you got to be aggressive with Terminators, right? So what better way than to just park some teleport homers and then be aggressive that way? Yeah, that would be terrible for the game, I think, but it would be hilarious.
You know, again, I said not saying that this is how it should work or whatever, but you know, just kind of talking it out. I think someone should address.
Yeah, that definitely. If it is not an FAQ, it should be an FAQ. We should definitely get that taken care of.
Oh yeah, but again, I get these are the types of questions that, I mean, this is obviously people that are poring over the game and figuring out ways to do a little bit better in their environment. You know, I mean, and sometimes that's all it takes is just a little bit of preparedness and really digging deep in the rules to figure out what you can do, not necessarily what you should do, but what you can do.
Well, yeah, like, and that works both ways, because even if you see, I mean, that's just a good rule of thumb, you know, it's like, you know, study your codex and study other books. That way, even if it's not something you're going to do, you want to know what your opponent is going to do, right? You, like, when he sets his army down, you know, from a competitive standpoint, you definitely want to know, well, he's got this and this. He's probably going to try to pull this trick off or drop this stratagem on me here, here, and here. Unless you're playing Drakari and then you just, you know, vect it and, you know, just move on with your day.
I don't like the way you said that whole vect. That's perfectly valid. It is the most powerful stratagem in the game.
It's so good. Wait, do you use that? Is that in your list?
Oh, no, I don't. No.
Okay. It is insultingly powerful. Like it gives me a level of feel badsies that I have never known in 40k. I think, because it's like, you know, you do this, and you know your opponent's going to do this, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm doing this and this, and your opponent goes, no, actually, you're not doing that.
It's punishing. Like, I mean, that's how we saw it on every, you know, Dark Eldar did pretty well at the ATC. We saw that, like, it even gave the fact that it existed gave us. I mean,
yeah.
It's incredibly powerful, but I think it's good. And this is one of the things, again, we chat about here on the next segment, is that things in the competitive environment, their main figures out a way to beat it, and then what's good changes, and what you encounter at tournaments changes, and then bubbles up. It's just kind of like this, almost like a cyclone.
Yeah. Well, it's like my nephew, you know, he's been playing since 8th edition came out, but he hasn't really, just due to sports and stuff, he hasn't had time to really, like, play a lot. So his list from since 8th came out and to now, his list, I don't even think is legal now. I think, you know, we have to go back and tweak it so much because the game is constantly evolving. And that's, you know, some people don't like that the game is moving so quickly, but I think that's what keeps the game so exciting and fresh, is how it's constantly evolving, how we're constantly having to think about the game and our tactics and our army and the hobby. That's what keeps it so exciting for me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Speaking of hobby, like I've been doing a little bit of renovation in my hobby area, so I haven't painted a model in probably 3 weeks, and then I'm really missing it. I mean, we got to get the finishing move started back up again. We got to get things going. I think that the finishing moves for next week might be painting leaves.
Ooh.
It's making things look organic.
Yeah. I am terrible at that. Like, I do not do well with organic stuff. I am terrible. Like, I can paint a robot, I could paint tanks, I could paint that stuff all day. But if it comes to flesh tones, I'm out.
Man, I've got a really cool way of doing my tree spirit stuff.
Yeah.
So like the spite revenants and the tree revenants, but I also I'm always trying to like scope better ways of doing things, and I found some pictures on Twitter of somebody's spite revenants that just put mine to shame. It looks like I finger painted my stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what, we've talked about that one time. Is like, you got to be careful on the internet, because you can look for inspiration, but you can also find something that just demoralizes you so much because you'll never reach that.
So good. It's so good.
You just throw your paintbrush down. I quit.
They get all that. Like, I don't even see that when I look at the model. I mean, I see it when in their painting, but I
don't understand.
I did not even remotely see half of that detail.
Yeah, people are amazing, like, at painting. Like, I remember the moment when, like, it was the first time I came over to your house and you showed me your Sylvaneth army. And I was like, oh, Paul, did you paint these? These are really good. And like, you had this look, and you're like, I paint too, Ricky. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course you do.
Well, I mean, there are obviously people that are immensely talented. Like, I have no natural talent. Like, it's all learned stuff. It's all watching tutorials. And that's why I think that stuff like the finishing moves is so cool, because it's stuff that like we've picked up along the way and actually made work. So it's like proven, like, power shots of something to inject into your hobby and try, and it's going to work. Like, you need no natural talent. You can just follow the instructions and make it work. And I know that, like, to some degree, like, even the greats will tell you that it's time. Like, they just invest the time, and that's how they're good. But I think they're being humble. Yeah.
I just want to choke them when they say, "Oh, you just need a little time, dude." I'm 20 years older than you. Where's the time? It's like, where did you find the time?
I don't want to disrespect what they're saying. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
There's obviously something that they are seeing that I'm not.
Yeah. I think with anything, there are people out there who are just, naturally going to, have that aptitude that they're going to do better at certain things. But like, some people just pick it up and go, and some people just see things differently. And then, I have a friend who had to take color theory twice in college because it just wasn't clicking, So it's wow. It runs the gamut. Yeah, I pick on him all the time about it. But it's like, when I look at my painting, I don't think that my painting has progressed by leaps and bounds over. Nothing fundamentally has like become, I haven't done anything amazing since I began painting. It was just picking up little tricks and techniques and stuff here and there along the way that has helped me do things very cleanly, and I do a good job. My paint jobs are nice. But then I have friends who don't consider themselves painters at all, or who don't really go for, trying to win awards for it. And they do certain things, and they have certain techniques that I don't possess. And it's like, that impress me. So it seems like everybody has little toolkits here and there. And it's just, you got to talk to those people and try to pick up stuff that they're doing and teach them something that you're doing. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
Yeah,
right?
With these things like the spite revenants, it's a good opportunity to use a lot of tricks. And so that's why I think the leaves might be a good thing to pick back up. But I actually, like, whenever I talk about this stuff, it's either something that we're doing or something that I've tried or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I want to get my hands back on it. And then next week we'll talk about this stuff. I'm actually going to be at Gen Con this weekend.
Jealous.
I'm just going to try to play every game imaginable.
You should.
I'm going to try to at least buy a couple of new games, things I've never heard of that just look fun, and bring them back home with me. But I am going to wander around, and I'll be there from Thursday late evening until Sunday mid-afternoon. So look forward to running into folks that listen to the show, and I'm going to check out the 40K tournament going on there this weekend. I'm not going to play in it. I wasn't expecting to go up there, but I shouldn't say I wasn't expecting. I wasn't sure if I could line it up to where I could go. But I'm just going to go and be a tourist. And of course try to contribute where I can to the 40K scene going up there, because they got all kind of demos going on, from independent. These are independent people that are running for games like Kill Team, the Death Watch Overkill board game itself, the 40K tournament. I mean, it's going to be a lot of things, and I'm trying to look at the schedule of events for the entire convention and plan out things to do. I'm just going to go up there and be just a total nerd tourist.
See, you say that like you're just, I'm going to go hang out. I will put $10 down right now that Paul Murphy ends up on some Twitch channel, like commentating on a game. Like that's, I feel like that's about to happen.
That may happen.
Right. Yeah, it's like no matter where you go, somehow you get roped into like being on some.
I like to talk about nerd stuff, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly we both do.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's take a break. We will come back, and then it's going to be a segment. It's going to be 2 segments with Reese, where we talk about the rules proposed. These are like rules of etiquette, rules of engagement, outside of the tournament, where they're proposed by the ITC, and I think are a really great idea. And then we're going to go and talk about the BAO and some of the success of some of the unconventional lists that were there. And I mean, I think it's going to spread like wildfire.
I hope so. I want to see them on this side of the country, so that's great.
All right, man. Well, Ricky, I'm glad you're back. We'll see you next week, and have a good rest of your night.
Good night, world.
You guys hang tight. Come back with Reese.
You're listening to Forge the Narrative.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. I'm joined tonight by Reese Robbins.
Hey, how you doing?
Yo, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, buddy.
You're hot off the BAO.
Indeed. I don't know if hot, actually it is pretty hot in San Diego right now, but compared to where you're at, it's probably nothing because we're wimps out here when it comes to weather, but it's more like exhausted off of the BAO. But yeah, we did just get home.
That's fair. God, speaking of the heat, record temps everywhere. It's even like in the 90s in Europe. Like, I'm sorry, yeah. in the UK.
It's crazy because here in San Diego, the joke is that the San Diego weatherman has the easiest job in the world because he just has to stand in front of the camera and go, "It's nice, and tomorrow will be nice too." My apartment doesn't have heating or air conditioning.
Wow.
Yeah, because you don't need it. But like right now, it's pretty rough.
But you are BAO. I mean, we'll talk about on this episode. We're going to talk about some proposed ITC floor rules, a code of conduct, as it were. And I also want to talk about the BAO because I think some interesting lists were at the top, but we'll save that for later on in the show. If that's fine with you, and we'll kind of jump into these floor rules. This is something that obviously these were spawned out of some let me say, it seemed like you chose to reveal them on the back of some conflict and stuff that we've talked about on other episodes. But it didn't originate from that, and these were probably a long time coming.
Yeah, indeed, and we could be real about it. Like, it's no big deal. Like, we had a big controversy at the LVO. We had one at Nova, we had one at LGT, and then we had one at ATC. And it's like, oh my gosh, like it's putting out the wrong image, right? Like, cause people who are organized or competitive play can point at that and go like, see, but it's like, you're talking about less than 1% of the people, like way less than 1% of the people that go. Unfortunately, it's been so high profile that it's kind of tarnished the image of the one way to play the game, which happens to be a way that you and I and a lot of other people really enjoy and are proud of. And we've been batting around the idea of doing etiquette rules for quite some time. After LVO, we started working on it, but it was kind of like a back burner project. And after kind of like a rapid fire series of not the most like awesome, event, like circumstances, and I'm not casting stones at anybody, like it happens.
Well, I mean, let me just say this. It's like 100% of the major events have had controversy.
Except the BAO.
Okay, well, okay, my apologies. 97% of the of the major events have had some type of controversy that spiraled out, that may have made people, not the people that were there. These are things that when you're there, it's like, doesn't affect your fun. And I'm using the air quotes, but this is the stuff that gets blown up on comment sections, forums, and stuff like that.
Yeah, indeed. And it sucks because, like I've been telling people, I actually had people get mad at us. I was like, we were at ATC. Did they have some issues? Yeah. Did I have fun? I had a blast. And we played Team Happy, who's been the target of a lot of this stuff. And I was like, people are like, oh, you guys are trying to sweep stuff under the rug. I'm like, no, we had a fun game against Team Happy. Like, I'm not going to stand here and lie just because that's the narrative that's going on right now.
It fits the emotion.
Yeah. I was like, I got my ass kicked by Justin Curtis, and we were laughing and having fun the whole time. Right? Like, we played them the last time we were there too, and we had a great time with them too at that time. Obviously, not everybody did, but it's like, we had a great time, like, even despite the delays and all the other things that occurred. And the majority of the people that went to any of these other events that have had these unfortunate incidents, which have soaked up all the attention, if you ask the average person at the event, they probably weren't even aware of it at the time, and they were just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. But so to bring this back to the point is that these etiquette rules, these floor rules that we want to talk about, I honestly think this is what I 100% think about tournament gaming, is that the times when this happens, this very small fraction of the number of games, is when one of those opponents at one of these events is kind of playing by different rules than you are.
I agree 100%.
You don't realize that until it's too late.
I agree. And every single one of us can tell a story of where you're having a good game and something goes sideways, right? Like, somebody rolls a die that you can't see and it's a critical roll, and they're like, oh, it was a 6, or whatever the most beneficial outcome is. And it's like, even if they're telling the truth, which they probably are, it casts it into doubt. Or when someone's list there was a mistake on their list, or any number of these little human interaction things that aren't covered in the rules that can sour the experience. And the whole idea of having floor rules, which, by the way, a lot of people were like lamenting that we need them. It's like, we should have done this a long time ago, quite frankly.
Every single organized event, every football, Magic,
poker.
Every single thing. Like poker, you can't splash the pot. You can't say, well, all that stuff that happens in the movies. Well, I'll see your whatever and raise you this. That you can't do that. That's actually against the floor rules in poker.
And you can't touch, like when you're sitting at the table, you can't touch anybody else's cards. There's all sorts of things you cannot do, that aren't in the rules of playing the game of poker, but they are definitely in effect when you're playing it when there's real stakes.
So every single organized thing that people care about has this type of stuff.
Exactly. So it's really not that big of a deal. It's something that just needs to occur. And the reason that it does is that it standardized the experience. Like, when you go to an event and you're playing a stranger, you know that you're all playing by the same set of rules. It makes it easier to have fun. Most of the time, you're not going to need them, but when you do need them, you're going to be really glad that they're there.
I think that's probably a very fair statement. And this is one of those times, or one of those things where it will just exist in the background until it's necessary.
Yeah. And the other nice thing about it too is it's going to empower TOs, cause it stinks, right? Like, most of us are not confrontational by nature, and it's not fun when you have to deliver bad news to somebody. And if you have a set of rules that you can point at, it helps make it infinitely easier. It doesn't seem like you're just making it up on the spot. You can like, oh, hey, you know what? You violated X rule. I'm sorry to do this, but that's a yellow card. We're going with the yellow card, red card system, at this point in time, unless there's a dramatic change. But it makes it super simple, right? Like, it takes all of it makes it impartial, and that's really important.
Can we jump back? Because I know that a lot of people listening probably don't have not read this yet, because it's not been widely published. What are a few of the things that it covers? And I think you were just talking about, it outlines some suggested consequences and a way to track that.
Sure. And then, of course, again, these are guidelines, right? Everything we do in the ITC at this time is a suggestion. Everybody's free to take it and make it what they want to fit their community. Most people take it out of the box because it's easy and it makes sense to do. But I always like to preface it with that, because a lot of times people confuse what the ITC is about. It's not about dictating. It's about facilitating and presenting guidelines that are tried and true. But some of the suggestions that we have in the guidelines and the floor rules, like if somebody's more than 15 minutes late to the round, they're disrespecting the event and their opponent. And we all know that mistakes happen, but sometimes someone's just not paying attention. But that's really not fair. And then the judge can issue that person a yellow card foul. Obviously, it's very similar to soccer. If you get 3 yellow cards, it's a red card and you're going to be expelled from the event. At the judge's discretion, it's not a hard and fast rule, but that's what we suggest.
God, that's like the nuclear option. And that anytime a judge, like, again, these are people, I'm talking about for like even local events and major events too. These are people that are there just trying to facilitate fun for folks. And
Yes.
when you have to come down with some ruling that you know is seriously going to impact someone's fun at the event, or potentially make it seem like you wasted their time or whatever. I mean, you feel it. You carry it with you. It's not something that's easily done by, I think, anyone in this group.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point, right? Is that, like, can any of us get a yellow card in an event? Yeah, it's possible, right? Like, who knows what? Like, you went to go run out to lunch and there was a super long line and there was just really not a whole lot you could do about it, and you came back a little bit late. So if you get that one yellow card because you were late and it is your responsibility to be there, is that the end of the world? No. You can get 3, right? You have 2 basically like, hey, we get it, you goofed. But if somebody is habitually crossing the line, it becomes pretty evident pretty quickly. And now the judge has a system in which they can legitimately excuse that person from really making the event less fun for everybody else. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
And you're talking about people that attempt to continually play in that margin. They're trying to really skirt. It's not even a sportsmanship. I mean, it is a sportsmanship issue, but like it's beyond that. It's beyond a single in-game activity. It's like a whole nother level of activity.
Right. And the being late thing maybe wasn't the best example because everybody can understand that, but everybody can also imagine a circumstance in which it was out of your control. Here's a better one, right? Slow playing, which is the number one complaint in any tournament environment. So if you're not using clocks, which at this point in time, most people do not, but you have somebody that is habitually being like reported as slow playing, we obviously recommend the judge get involved. And if the judge is starting to observe some of this behavior, they can start issuing out yellow cards. If someone is habitually slow playing, then it's grounds for taking perhaps more serious disciplinary action if it's necessary. So that's what I think everybody can understand. Although if you just use the clock in those situations, it removes all doubt. But it's circumstances like that it gives the judge a tool set within which to take action without having to, shoot from the hip, which is never fun.
They're not out on an island. They have this is what it's like missions for a tournament. You publish this stuff that you're going to use it, and then people get to review it. They know where the boundaries are.
Exactly. And it's all really just common sense stuff, right? It's all things that if you wanted to have your ideal opponent across the table from you, these are all things that they would do. And that this is also the kind of opponent you should strive to be. So, really, it's just a set of guidelines to help us all act within those boundaries. And really, everyone's been calling for it. So, it was a long time in coming. It's really cool, too. The other part that I think is hopefully going to be very reassuring to anybody that maybe is feeling doubts or apprehension, there's over 200 experienced TOs putting their input in on it.
And this is in the ITC tournament organizers group on Facebook, which you encourage people to join, even if you run small ITC events in your area.
Yeah, even if you just run like a quarterly league or whatever, like not to say that that's not to undermine that, but you don't have to be running, Nova or LVO or Adepticon to have a seat at the table. We want everybody to have their input and to feel like their voice has been heard and they represent their community. So we ask for everybody's input, and so far, the floor rules have been almost universally positively received. Any certain aspects of it that people take issue with, it's usually like about like the wording. Maybe there was a rule in there that they thought was going too far, didn't go far enough. So it's nothing is like fundamental opposition. It's mostly like fine tuning of the rule set so far.
That's what it seems like to me. And you get people that I think are coming in about it and looking at it in the worst case scenario. And that's actually how you should review. Does this stand up?
Exactly. That's what we ask everybody to do. Like poke holes in this because that's what the players are going to do within 10 minutes of it getting published. They're going to be looking for ways to exploit the system.
Because still playing that margin. No, it's.
Well, I mean, gamers game the system. That is what they do. That's why we enjoy games. So it's one of the reasons why we enjoy games. So you should anticipate it. And like you said, you're in the group too, and you try to exploit this rule to get a result out of it that was not intended. And so far, it's been really good. The feedback's been positive, and where a rule can be exploited due to the language, people are like, hey, what about this? What if somebody tried to do this? So we change it. And I feel really good about it. It's like, what do you do if somebody has loaded dice? You know, how do you handle that? What if somebody's list is illegal? How do you handle that? And these are all just common mistakes. And it gives you guidelines to help deal with that and just keep the event running smoothly.
Time, running smooth, and a fair way to deal with things when the bumps come up.
So yeah, it's I think it's going to be really positive. The reception of it has been very positive, and the community at large is asking for it. So I think when they roll out, if anything, it'll be an underwhelming response because it's all just kind of common sense stuff.
You're probably right. Like, they're going to read it like, oh.
Nothing crazy, right? Like, it's all just basically
a little bit more agency to do things and to potentially, like, because the people that read this stuff, that, again, the comments that we blow up, you know, we make it happen on the internet because with all the comments, they see that and they may shy away from going to the next RTT.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what it is. Like, for the absolute number one priority is our job as tournament organizers is to facilitate the fun of the people that are at your event, right? Those are the priorities. And when you have these events that cast, or you have these incidents that cast these events in a negative light, like you said, it can turn somebody away. And it sucks because you know and I know how much fun and the lifelong friendships that come out of these events. You want people to feel like they can come and they can have fun and not focus on the negatives.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's a great point. We always encourage people to go out to these events on our show. But you see the same people. You go to places to eat dinner you would have never gone before. You know, it's an
enriching, it enriches your life. And I know that sounds like maybe a little bit silly, but it's absolutely true. I never would have met because of just like the circumstances of life, you know, like, from wildly different backgrounds, and you come together because you have this common interest, this hobby that you love, and it's genuinely made my life better as a result of going and doing these things. Like, you and I became friends as a result of playing at Adepticon several years in a row and realizing we had a lot in common, and it's just like having a really good, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And we would never would have met, right?
No, not except for rolling dice.
And it's like, the passion that drives us at Frontline Gaming is trying to share that with as many people as possible, right? And so the flow rules, I think, help do that and keep the momentum going forward and then getting more people involved.
Absolutely agree. So when should we expect these to come out?
As soon as possible. It's just, there's nothing worse than working on a project and then having a big glaring error in it. Cause you look like an idiot when you roll. You're like, hey, check it out. Oh, whoops. A couple of things I want to add in there. Like, what is the etiquette for a take back, right? Not during the game, but after the game, like a score amendment. And that came up twice to BAO, and it really got me thinking about it. And I was like, okay, how do we normally deal with it? What's reasonable?
Do you adjust pairings? You know, what happens?
Right. And I think that's really important. So I want to put that in there. And then, of course, get the feedback, make any changes, get further feedback. I'd say we're 90% done. So I would say during the month of August, sooner than later, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I can't wait to see this come out. I can't wait to see how it empowers people to get to be able to make a minority of tough decisions on what to do when these fractions come up. And, you know, hopefully it puts some people at ease. And I guess what I'm really hoping is that it propels the competitive side of 40K, that next step forward.
Yeah, because let's be real, at the narrative event and the friendly event, you don't usually get any kind of head bumping. I mean, it does happen. That's rare, right? Like, that is not a normal occurrence. So yeah, like, I think it will mostly benefit the competitive community and help facilitate the fun, you know, and that's what it's all about.
That's awesome, man. Well, can we take a quick break and then come back and talk about the BAO?
Indeed.
All right. Hang on a second.
FTN is also on Facebook. Please like us at www.facebook.com/Forge the Narrative.
Hey everybody, we are back. I'm still with Reese.
Hey.
Yo man, so BAO, I need you to tell me what those Nurgle Terminators were for.
Yeah, isn't that cool? First of all, like, isn't that cool, man? Everybody's jaw hit the ground. But then when you saw them in action, you're like, it's one of those moments where your immediate reaction is, why hasn't anybody done this sooner?
Well, tell me, okay, the list that won was actually really cool. I mean, it had a Chaos Knight, a Renegade Knight, a couple of Armigers, utilizing those rules, which is awesome. And only one Demon Prince, and that's what got me. I'm like, where are the rest of the points? And it's in 10, what's the name of the Terminators? The
Blight Lord Terminators, something like that.
10 Blight Lord Terminators.
Yeah, and so first of all, the gentleman who won, Don Husin, aka the Mastodon, he used to use a list with a Mastodon full of Wolfen.
Oh, okay. I've seen that.
So
list,
it kind of stuck, right? So first of all, he always takes totally unique lists. Like, I've never seen him play like a quote unquote net list. And he's really good. Like, he's done very well in the southwestern region for years. He's also a community leader and just an all-around good dude. So congratulations to him. I was really happy to see him win. But his list was unique, to put it lightly. Everybody was just like losing their minds over the Terminators. But the thing is, once you like really think about it and you saw the way he used them, it pretty much makes sense, right? They have a 4-up invul save. They have disgusting resilient. They hit very hard in combat. They have pretty good shooting with all the storm bolters.
They essentially take power axes that reroll wounds.
That do D3 damage, if I remember, or it's flat 2. I can't. It's one of the. It's either 2 damage or D3, if I remember correctly. The bubonic axis. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong on that, but if I remember correctly, that is accurate. But what he would do is he would drop them behind his opponent or on a flank and drive directly into their backfield. Most of us have just table filler in the backfield, right? Like, it's usually
something to hold back, somebody else's deep strike or just to hold an objective in your own field. It's
usually like the CP guard battalion or maybe a couple of shooting units or whatever, Dark Reapers, whatever the heck it may be, depending on your flavor. And the fact that they're coming in on turn 2 or 3 means most of your army has gone forward. And they just walked through everybody's backfield. The only time they didn't was when he played Jeff, and Jeff was able to contain them really well. But Don said in 5 out of 6 of his games that they did by far the most damage out of every unit in his army.
Wow, that's really interesting. He had the Renegade Knight with the 2 Avenger Gatling cannons, if I remember right.
He did, yep.
So you would assume that thing's going to do some damage. I mean, the longer it stays on the table, the more damage it's going to be doing.
It does work, and then he had 2 Helverins as well, which the Helverins were what won him the game against Jeff. Jeff made a mental error.
We're talking about.
AKA In Control, yep. Correct. The one of the better players on the West Coast. He won the LGT Invitational. He's been on a hot streak with his Custodes. But Jeff goofed, and he moved his Custodian Guard out to go get objectives, used to them not dying, right? He uses them to take objectives, and they're ultra resilient. T5, 3 wounds, 2 up, 5++.
And so you're getting shot with 3 damage autocannons.
Exactly. And he seriously just goofed because it was hammered anvil. He had almost the entire board between them, but they move 14 inches and they shoot 60. And he just sat there and watched them melt. And all of a sudden his ability to score objectives went poof. And that was it. That was the nail in the coffin ultimately. But, Don also took up a lot of Jeff's attention by putting those 10, Terminators in his backfield. And then, now his jet bikes and a lot of his resources have to be dedicated to stopping that unit, which is extremely difficult to kill.
Yeah, you can't shoot bolters at that unit and expect them to lose.
No, you cannot.
I gotcha.
So that was it, and Don won pretty handily. I think if Jeff would have played his Custodian Guard better, it would have been a much closer game, possibly a victory. But the way that the cookie crumbled, without the ability to go score objectives, he just got chewed up. So it's pretty good. It's pretty interesting. And from what I talked to Don, most of his games, that was the way it went. Specifically, what he said is that the Terminators forced his opponent's backfield away from them because they couldn't stand up to him towards the rest of his army, which just smashed them.
God, we say that all the time. If you can find a way, it's like game theory. In the textbook sense of game theory is that your opponents. You have to plan on them making the best decision every time. But if they just don't know what decision to make because you've introduced this, I was going to say chaos, but that might be a little too on the nose. But these Terminators again that you've never seen before, and then we just read the stats. They sound super gross, right?
I did probably T5 too. If I don't have the book in front of me, but considering that they're Nurgle, because you know what I bet you in the past, and sorry to derail your thought, I totally agree with everything you just said. Yeah. I bet you the way people were playing was they took a unit of 5, maybe deep struck them down on turn 1, obviously pre-big FAQ, shot a couple things with their storm bolters and then got killed. And then they're like, these suck, right? But then when you go all in and you take a unit of 10 and they're using Cloud of Flies on them, some of the stratagems where they literally cannot be shot, all this crazy stuff that Nurgle can do, and you really dedicate some resources to them, all of a sudden now it's a wrecking ball. It's approaching Death Star-like status. So I have to tip my hat to Don. That was pretty cool.
No, same here. I mean, I don't net list often, but I found myself like, I need to get my hands on 10 Terminators. Right?
I guarantee you now, because you know how it goes. Now the public opinion that they suck is going to go 180 degrees till they're awesome. And then in a month, if you put that unit on the table, people are going to call you cheesy. Yeah. Even though a month ago, they would have called you a noob.
Yeah, I got to paint fast so I can be somewhere in that cut,
It's funny how these things work, and that's why I always tell people just do what you enjoy. Don't worry about what everybody else says. Like, trust your instincts. If you find a unit and you can make it work, believe that you can make it work on the competitive stage, because you can.
Well, let's talk about it. Okay, faith aside, let's talk about the benefit of having a 10-man unit and stacking up awesome stratagems on them. Or I should say a large unit, a max unit of dudes, of unit, and then being able to maximize those stratagems. That's a great point you made.
Absolutely. And this is one of the reasons why I personally please don't take this as which direction the wind is going to blow. This is just me talking as a player. The way the math of the game works is that the more models in the unit, the more wounds in the unit, the more mileage you get out of any buff. So if you have a unit that you're going to dedicate a lot of stratagems or psychic powers or whatever to, usually it's mathematically more efficient to have that unit be the maximum size. Examples that people will see very frequently are cultists, Necron Warriors, previously conscripts, so they've kind of fallen out of favor. I still swear by them, but most people don't. Yeah, that's it. And they start in a unit of 30, to the point that we're discussing. Everyone's, but a unit of 10 guardsmen's better. I'm like, they absolutely are, but they only have a 10-man unit. Whereas a 30-man unit with the take cover stratagem and a Vexillus Praetor behind them, giving them a 5++. Now they have a 4-up invul save, and then if you again cast the +1 save power, now you have a unit of 30 dudes with a 3++. That sounds like a good screen to me.
That's obnoxious, is what that is.
It's insane. They don't have to kill anything. I don't care. That's not their job.
But they will, because they're strength 4.
And I play Catachan, so they have 3 attacks each. And then, and then that's the thing that people miss, is when they're doing a strict stat-to-stat analysis, you miss out on some of the other factors that come into play. It's another reason why the single knight Castellan House Raven tends to be the most popular choice with knights, because you can focus all your command points onto this one 28 wound model that has a lot of firepower, and the force multiplication effect makes it dramatically better than it would have been if you just were throwing like 1 or 2 command points at it a turn.
We saw a bunch. I know you're going to have a BAO recap, and you're going to go through all this on your show, Signals from the Frontline, which people should check out if they don't already. But there were a ton of knights there. Like, there were a ton of knights in the top brackets.
It was the most popular faction. It was the most popular detachment taken. Yak Hunter sent some really interesting data where he broke down every faction, sub-faction, like how many people took a Laytalk, which, by the way, a Laytalk versus any other flavor of Eldar was 15-1. They might be a little too good.
This is a quick aside. Like, someone got so mad at me because I didn't fully describe one of the Eldar craft worlds, and it turns out no one's playing them anyway.
I think I'm one of the only people that plays Biel-Tan. Like, and I think the numbers would support that, but, it's true. People latch onto this. Like, they think that what is quote unquote the best, even if it not necessarily is. Like, Dawn just showed everybody this unit that everybody would have said was bad, or almost everybody would have said is bad. Oh, now it's going to become very popular, right?
The new hotness, as it were.
Yeah. And it's so much of it is groupthink, but, that is what it is, and it's not that big of a deal. But, Knights were the most popular faction. There was 14 Knight armies, and I think that there was even more than that Knight detachments that got brought. So yeah, they're super popular right now, and I think it's a combination of the fact that they are very good, which they should be. Every army should be very good. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a Knight, but everybody's been sitting them on the shelf for the past 2-3 years.
They're beautiful models.
So, yeah, right? They're amazing. And the new ones are freaking rad. So I think it's a combination of shiny new codex syndrome, and a lot of people are being taken off guard because the meta prior was a horde meta. It was an infantry heavy meta, so people were geared up to kill lots of models. Oh, here comes this big knight. It's extremely difficult to hurt, and my storm bolters are ineffective at this point. Oh man, I just got run over. Knights are too good. In a month, that narrative will probably change.
Fair enough, but I mean that should be what we want. That's kind of like an ecosystem, as it were. Does that make sense?
I agree. People are very short-sighted, and I say that not to be a jerk, or not that I'm guilty of it myself. I've had Chicken Little Sky is Falling syndrome multiple times myself. But with age, it's gotten a little less dramatic, right? I don't have this big of a reaction. So much of this it seems shock and awe, and then it just isn't. Like last month, everybody was talking about how Jukari are too good. No, I think they're pitch perfect. They're awesome. They're really good. And before that, it was Custodes. Oh, they're too good. They're too good. This is just the ebb and flow of the community. They have an emotional reaction to something, instantly go online, smash their keyboard, and then, a couple weeks later, people start to realize it really wasn't that bad.
Well, if you're playing, let's say you've got a small group of gamer buddies, and you play once a week, and one guy brings the same thing every time, and you bring the same thing every time, then you kind of are going to feel the games are going to go a certain way. In a tournament scene or a tournament setting, or you're going to be the round matchups could be all different. It could be shake out a different way every time, and then some things obviously rise to the top. But then people start to inject things into the tournament that are good at taking that out, and so they exist for a little while, and then it changes the next couple of months. I mean, I think that's perfectly healthy.
That's a really good point, and one that I didn't even consider when I framed my response. If you're playing in a very, very small pool of players, then your reality is going to be significantly different. Like I have a group of friends that they play in my buddy's garage every week, and there's 5 of them, and they only play each other, and they don't really change their list that much. And that's a totally valid and probably the most common way to play the game. So yeah, you're right. From that perspective, it may feel very different, but in the tournament scene where things are changing like on a week by week basis, as you noted, with knights, the counter knight option is going to rise, and therefore knights will decrease proportionately.
Yeah, I think that's just perfectly healthy, though. That's the kind of stuff that we like to see. I mean, I guess from the analysis point of view, I like seeing these things bubble up, and then I love seeing this like weird alien choice because I think if we were having this conversation a week and a half ago, we would have all been in lockstep saying Terminators are for noobs.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have said I would have seen this coming, but I absolutely did not. Like, it's just, none of us have perfect knowledge of the game. And as you noted, you want a game that is in constant flux. Like, it's critical for the success of the game. It's critical for the health of the community. It's critical for having a unique and interesting play experience. Like, that is super duper important, right? We all look at Fifth as kind of like oftentimes we kind of like enshrine Fifth as this wonderful competitive game, but at the end of it, I was forcing myself to play. It got so stale. When you're getting 2 codexes a year, man, that gets old, and this isn't chess we're playing where it's almost entirely a skill-based game. So in any kind of a game with random chance element, which are more exciting in my opinion, that's what makes the game fun, is those moments. You need constant change.
Yeah, I agree, and I really dig where we're at right now. And again, it's fun to be able to have this conversation about what we saw as, I mean, people have different definitions of meta or whatever, but the BAO, it's a large event. It's an event that people spend a lot of time trying to prepare their armies for, get ready for, and then to see this type of kind of interesting shift. And then something totally unorthodox actually pull down the top prize. Really cool to see.
Yeah, and it was super cool. And some other data points, if you're interested, I'd be happy to share. Some of it I think would be interesting for people listening.
Yeah, please.
So in the top 4, 3 of the players had knights. 2 of them were all knight armies, and they played each other for second place. And the knight army that won had a CP battalion and a little bit more shooting. The other gentleman was like literally his 5th edition all knight army, like paladins, wardens. And it was funny because maybe this is a bit of an indictment at Knights and people might take it that way, but he doesn't play that much anymore. And he was like, I can't believe I'm winning so much. He's like, don't put me on the stream. I'm afraid people will laugh at me because they don't think I know what I'm doing. But he blew the dust off.
What did you do that? I don't know. It just seemed cool.
No, I mean, tactically, he's a sound player, but he's not in touch with like the razor sharp meta. But the other player was Salty John, one of the top, he's one of the head judges from the LVO, and obviously very attuned to the competitive meta. He stays on top of it. And he really did shellac a lot of the people he played, and that guard CP battalion, to no one's surprise, gave him a considerable edge in that matchup. Interestingly, though, from a data perspective, Renegade Knights outperformed Imperial Knights significantly. It was a smaller sample. There's only a couple people that brought them, including Dawn, the person who won. But they had players with a Renegade Knight detachment had a 75% win ratio.
Really? So you don't think that his performance skewed that? I mean, obviously.
Oh, it obviously did. But it was very interesting, whereas Knights in general did not have an outstanding performance. There was a couple all-stars in there. The second most popular faction, what would you guess, Paul? What would you guess would be the second most commonly brought detachment?
Okay, I guess I'm going to guess guard, or is that guard off the table?
I would have said guard too, but it was Tau.
Wow. All right.
Right? Yeah. Tau was the second most, and then guard was third. If I'm remembering the data correctly, forgive me if I made an error. But one of the things I thought was really interesting, again, what would be your guess? What would be the most popular flavor of guard brought?
Cadian.
Oh, okay. See, I would have said Catachan, but it was Cadian.
The only reason I say Cadian is because I think people still think Chaos has a strong presence, and they kind of want to use that relic crutch.
Fair enough. But when you're taking a CP battalion, it's typically speaking 3 units of guard, 2 company commanders. That relic isn't going to do a whole lot for you, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, mortars are a handful if you have. I mean, again, I didn't look at all the armies for there. This is just my assumption. But
that's super interesting because I would have guessed, because Catachan infantry are hyper points efficient.
Yeah, that's what I play. I play Catachans. I love them.
Me too.
Every time I mention it, people still give me that grief about Cadia.
I'm glad I asked, right? Because to me, it's like blaringly obvious when you have a 4-point model that can get 3 strength 4 attacks.
Look, I'm with you.
Yeah. But anyway, it's maybe I'm belaboring the point, but after Cadian, it was actually a really interesting mix. There was Valhalla, Armageddon, which I was like, show me those lists. I can't wait to see that. Yeah, Catachan.
I can get the Valhalla, right? Because they can fire still at max strength, right? Is that what they do?
With Valhalla, my guess would be that they're taking super heavies because they largely ignore the damage table.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. You basically always fire at full profile, I think.
Exactly, and that's why I play House Hawkshroud when I play Knights. It was really, really interesting, and there was only one Space Marine player, like primary faction Space Marine. It's crazy how much that codex has fallen out of favor lately. Another interesting data point that I love, Sisters of Battles scored the most points per player per game, but they only had a 58% win ratio, so they were racking up the points but somehow not sealing the deal. I don't know how that works. But
that's interesting. This is weird. I guess you're tracking all this stuff. That's really cool that you are.
Yeah. We're trying to because we want to present, baseball level stats because it's fun. It's interesting. It's cool to see trends. It's fun to have informed opinions based on data instead of just, I feel this, therefore it's true for me. So I think the more we go down that road, the more accessible we make that information, the more fun it will be. And then also the more awesome it will be when someone like Don comes along and blows it all out of the water. It's just fun, right? It gives us stuff to talk about and think about when we're not playing.
Yeah, man. So I guess what was the most, outside of Don's, what do you think was the most interesting list you saw there at the BAO?
There was quite a few really cool and creative lists. And I noticed that on the West Coast, we get a lot of that. I don't know if it's because there's just a lot of hippies out here or what, but we do get a lot of people that really come up with some, very different lists. Not to stereotype too much, it's just an observation that I've made throughout the years.
People with a winning record. Best list or the weirdest list with a winning record?
Let me think here. One of the other one of the other most interesting night lists that I saw was a friend of ours. He took 3 gallants and 20 Death Company, and then a Guard CP battalion, and he went 5-1.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, totally not the way everybody else is playing it, but he did extremely well, and the only game he lost, he barely lost. So he did extremely well, and I thought that was really cool.
So he just like Forlorn Fury and Wings of Fire all over the place while people are kind of distracted by the knights?
Yep, and then he was playing House Crass, if I remember correctly, to do the double attack, if I said the house correct, if that was the accurate house. But it was a balls-to-the-wall melee army, and he did extremely well with it.
Man, that's really cool to hear. I can't wait to hear y'all's full recap and check out some of these lists. I think they're in BCP right now, right? Is that correct?
They are. The event, I think at this stage, they usually keep them up for 3 days post-event, which I think would
oh, by the time this comes out, yeah, it'll be gone.
Yeah, and then of course too, like to throw it out there, if anybody wants to get a subscription to Best Coast Pairing, if I believe it to this point in time, it's still only $5 a month. If you buy a year, it's even cheaper. And you can see every list from every event around the world. As long as they uploaded the list, you can go and check it out. It's for the money that you pay. It's like the amount of info that you get is insane.
The data to comb through. Anytime you need a little spare, have a little spare time at work, you could be looking at an army list.
Yeah, for the people who are doing well, maybe you want to be the best Sisters of Battle player, the best org player, and you can go check out and see what everybody's doing. It's a worthwhile investment, in my opinion, if that is something that interests you.
Oh man, well, Reese, man, thanks a lot for coming on and talking about the floor rules in the first segment, BAO in this segment. It's always cool to touch base with the other side of the country.
Yeah, man, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on. And I do have to say it was really cool to have a drama-free, fun event with some awesome games. Anybody wants to go check out any of those games, please go to Frontline Gaming _TV on Twitch. You can check out the VODs. We're going to port them over to YouTube as well. There's some absolutely amazing games. One I do really want to throw out, honorable mention, Brandon Grant, who won the last 2 BAOs. His game against Daniel Olivas, a really skilled Yanari player, literally came down to the very last roll of the die. Oh, wow. That was game so good. It was such a, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it was those moments in 40K that you live for. That was game 3 if anybody wants to check it out. So, but yeah, Paul, thank you so much for having me on.
Man, have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, brother.
See ya.
It's all in the reflexes.